Welcome back, Rage Nation. We got another episode for you today. Going to be another Malifaux one. So, got myself Pete here again, and got a guest on the show today. We got John Fox with us, and John, you're from North Carolina. And how long have you been playing the Malifaux for?
Oh Lord, I think I'm at 6, maybe 7 years now. I started at the very beginning of second edition, so however long ago that was, it's been a while.
Okay. So, I mean, and obviously, if you're playing a game for that long, I mean, Malifaux really has to be speaking to you pretty hard. So, I mean, I know that that are listening to this obviously probably know a lot about Malifaux, but just real quick, what is something about the game that you really love and enjoy more than other games?
100%, it's the fact that I have over those 6, 7 years played, several hundred games of Malifaux, and I can't think of any two games that played exactly the same versus other games I've played. I mean, I've played Guild Ball, I've played War Machine, I've played AOS, I've played old school Warhammer, um, going back to even playing like Hero Clicks and Mage Knight games, could get really stagnant. Some games you figure out before you even put on the board who's going to win. Malifaux, it's not like that. Every game is a new game.
Yeah, and I'll say coming from Guild Ball specifically, I know that especially since they kind of really came to a dead stop with releasing new models and new factions and stuff, it definitely became stagnant because you're just scoring 12 points, and even your turn one is almost always the same with whatever faction you like running in Guild Ball. So I will say Malifaux, as it's definitely fresh, it's exciting for me, and I agree. I haven't had a game yet that I've been like, oh yeah, man, I did the exact same thing. It's like, no, that just doesn't happen in this game.
No, because I mean, even if you play the same crew, you can switch things up, and the way you play or the objectives that you're playing for, like, can change drastically. Like, say I grab Wong, I have probably 12, 13 models total, not counting, out of keyword models that I
Mhm.
can go to grab and change my list up, and suddenly it's a very, very different list. Like playing Wong with Swinecurst is a lot different than playing Wong with a Pigapult tossing stuffed piglets all over the place.
Yeah, and that kind of gets into what we're going to be talking about with the show today. So, something that I'm going to start doing, just kind of something that I don't think's really available a lot in the Malifaux community right now, is just an episode to break down the factions. So, I'm going to kind of get on random people, not random people, people that know their faction. They know about a lot of the different keywords, and they know how they play and how they feel and what people are going to like and enjoy, because I just started playing Malifaux probably about 8 months now, maybe. And when I first got into the game, I really had no idea the difference between the different factions. And I started with Outcasts, and they were fun, they hit hard and stuff. But then I started playing Bayou, and that's kind of where I really started enjoying the game. Just because I started to explore it and listen to some of the background, and just found that this is kind of the faction that I'm going to be playing for quite a while. So I got John you on here to talk about Bayou today. So I hope you got your hat on, because your big hat on, because we're going to be talking some Bayou for quite a bit here.
Absolutely. I'm always up to talk about Bayou, especially, I've got the Bayou breakdown page where I'm writing articles and stuff like that. I've done a couple deep dives for Craig on Third Floor Wars. So I've been playing for a little while. Like, I kind of know what I'm talking about.
And I actually did have to apologize to John, because we actually referenced his article on the show, and I was like, I don't know who wrote this, but it's really good.
Especially when we were talking about it in the Bayou chat like 2 or 3 days
Yeah.
before you posted it.
Well, I actually didn't connect. I didn't. Well, that's because on the Facebook group, I didn't recognize, John, that you're actually the Bayou Breakdown, because that's what you are on Facebook.
Yeah,
Yeah. So it took me like probably longer than it should have to connect the dots there.
it's
Uh,
all good. I was kind of thrilled. I was like, cool. That means that somebody's reading it. I got one person reading it. That's fantastic.
yep. And the dozens of listeners of the Rage Quit Wire now know about it.
Absolutely.
So let's just kind of start off with general. Let's talk about the background of Bayou just to start off, because hopefully people listening to this are familiar with the general lore of Malifaux. So, where does the Bayou or the Gremlins, as they were called in previous editions, where do they kind of fit in fluff wise? Like, what are they doing in the world?
Well, there's not a lot of background about exactly where they came from, except that they are Malifaux natives, we're pretty sure. But they're not
Hmm.
quite like the Neverborn, who have this agenda of going around taking out tyrants and stopping the humans and that kind of thing. Gremlins are just kind of hanging out in the bayous doing their thing. And the important thing about Gremlins is they've seen people come in, they've seen all these really interesting things happening with these humans, and they like some of the aspects of human culture, so they've
Hmm.
stolen it. But the problem is they're not quite smart enough to really understand what they're stealing. This weird little cultural appropriation that they're doing comes out in some very, very strange ways. Like Somer, noticed all of these people were very important to the guild were wearing hats. And he determined that whoever has the biggest hat is the best leader.
Yep.
So he got a real big hat and he was the leader. Well, then Ophelia noticed the Latigo and all of the family guys hanging out, and she noticed that Perdita also had a really big hat. So during a raid, she stole Perdita's hat, and her hat was a little bit bigger, which ticked Sommer off. So he went and added to his hat to make it even bigger.
Yep.
So they like to take like human culture and then just like twist it around a little bit in their weird gremlin way.
Yeah, I get a very kind of deliverance feel from them sometimes where they're kind of like when people intrude on their home or they intrude too much, they're kind of like, you want to know what, you need to go back the way you came and
Yeah,
we'll take care of you if you don't get out of here.
yeah, they
Was
are
that
definitely a little on the scary side if you encounter them and you don't have a big enough group with you.
Yeah, and I was going to say there was actually a really cool story early on in the Breachside broadcast and the background where there's actually archaeologists that went into, I think they went into the Kin, or maybe it was Somer's camp, or maybe it was in Maw's camp. I don't think they specifically said, but basically they saw how like they're like a family unit, and the guy's writing about it in his journal, like describing how kind of they're somewhat intelligent but still animalistic. And then by the end of it, the Bayou Gremlins ended up poisoning uh, all the people that he was in there with doing this expedition, and they ended up being killed and never seen from again. And they just found the guy's journal. So it just goes to show you kind of how wild and crazy this faction is.
And clever. That's probably where
Yeah.
Bayou sits. Neverborn are deliberate. They have specific tactics, but the Gremlins are clever. They're not very intelligent, but they have this, like you said, almost like animalistic sort of like just like cleverness that can get them through. They build traps. They sneak up on people. They come to the right conclusion just in probably the most catastrophic ways.
And I got to ask you, John, because I know some people are. So you're looking at all these masters and stuff, and you start looking at they all kind of look the same. They all have their different flavor. But then you see this Captain Zip with a jetpack, and you're like, how does a gremlin get this jetpack and this zap gun? So, I mean, can you just show us a little bit of the fluff of Zip before we kind of move on to actual cards
Oh,
and play?
Zip is the reason that I fully jumped into Bayou. So my son played for a while till he went off to college, and he had Bayou. And so I helped him build some of the stuff, and I was like, okay, this is kind of cool. Well, then Zip showed up, and I'm like, this guy is fantastic. He is so ridiculous. So in Zip's introductory story, he is basically has been listening to the Aether boxes, which are kind of like the radios of
Hmm.
Malifaux, and he's heard all of these like adventure stories, the kind of like the penny dreadfuls of the time, and he's become enamored. We said each of these gremlins is sort of like grabbed onto some part of human culture. Well, he's kind of become enamored with this idea of being a pirate. He's going to be a sky pirate. He's going to do these like, this very like pulp H.G. Wells sort of Penny Dreadful ideal. Um, and then he happens upon a guild research lab where they have a dirigible that they're building, the skyship.
Yep.
And he and his crew sneak in, deliberately set a fire, sneak in, and steal it. And fortunately for all of them, this poor guy named Earl just happened to be on the ship making repairs, and he gets kidnapped with them. So
Oh man.
Earl is kind of he's a prisoner of Zip, and Zip has the first mate who ate his original first mate. It's just a Silurid. It may be more intelligent than a normal Silurid, but it's a Silurid nonetheless. And
Yeah.
he keeps morale by threatening to feed Earl or anyone that disobeys him to the first mate. So they kind of like run through Malifaux on this crazy ship with zero idea of how it works, and pretty much just on like pure gremlin luck.
Yeah, I would say that I actually I don't I don't think I fully appreciated the Bayou when I first looked at him because I think people coming from other games kind of mischaracterize the Bayou because I feel like when people look at Bayou, they're like, "Oh, this is the orcs and goblins of Malifaux," and I will say you do get some of the funness and kind of silliness of the orcs and goblins, but I would say that this faction definitely gives you a lot of the shenanigans aspect of it too. You can really come out of nowhere and really surprise your opponent with a lot of these crews.
Well, let's say it was more so in second edition, but even now, Bayou is kind of a high risk, high reward
Mm-hmm.
sort of faction. You have a lot of silly stuff like built-in triggers that you have to declare. Some of them are good, some of them are bad.
Yep.
Models that damage themselves, models that blow themselves up. All of these things, and it was definitely like a lot more in second edition, where you had some models that like the risk was much lower than the reward. Like Francois could shoot for like max 10 damage or something, if I remember correctly, in second edition. Like he
Mm-hmm.
was a nuts model. He killed himself doing it, but he could blow anything off the table in just one shot. So uh, it's a little more balanced now. They were able in third edition to kind of give you this idea of like these fun, zany creatures that are very like lucky, but it's balanced to gameplay where you feel like you're not struggling and you're not having these games that are like up and down all over the place.
So I kind of want to start off with before we get into specific crews. I actually just want to kind of talk about the versatile models first. So those of you that are brand new, you have your keyword, but the versatile models you can take in any crew, any keyword, but you don't have to pay the tax, even though they're not in keyword. So we're not going to go through every card, but I just wanted to see, John, which versatile models were you like, okay, these are some of the good ones that you see in a lot of different crews.
All right, so first of all is the Lucky Emissary. It's amazing.
Well,
It's
the model's amazing.
Yeah, the card is amazing too. I mean, it's super
you
fast.
you have a hamster wheel, but it's a pig, and it's trying to eat a gremlin.
Yep, on a fishing rod.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah, and it's super fast. It's got like a 7 move, 8 moves. I think it's 8 move. I think it might actually be the
it is
fastest
eight.
model.
It is eight.
Yeah, it's got like an 8 move. It doesn't care about other models. It's unimpeded. It has a push that's a 12-inch push. It has to go 12 inches. You can't scale it down any. But anything it passes over has to make a move duel or take damage. Any destructible terrain it passes over just gets mulched and it's gone, which is crazy good. It can just get to somebody's backfield in no time. It hits pretty hard. Like it's decently tough to take down. It's got a defense 6. It's got armor 1. It's got decent wounds. It's such a good model, and especially like when you're looking at current GG1 and you're looking at ley lines, symbols of authority, anything
Yep.
that requires you to be across the board. That thing's there on turn 1 if you need it to be.
Well, how much do you like its bonus action with Aura of Luck? Do you like being able to cheat off your deck?
I mean, considering when we'll get to later, my favorite master is Salmer. I love being able to cheat off my deck.
Okay, so you're
Um,
used to that, anyways.
and for the most part, like That aura is because like the emissary itself is a little too fast, I think, most times to really get a lot out of that aura for
Hmm.
other models. But um, one of our Bayou players, Jesse, out of the northeastern meta, he loves bringing the effigy and then growing it up, and that
Okay,
way.
so can you explain, because they're both lucky, but what's the difference between the emissary and the effigy?
So the effigy is basically the little tiny puppet, and it gets an upgrade that on turn 3 it replaces itself with the emissary. So you get like this
Oh,
little
okay.
tiny support model, and then it grows into this big kind of beater fast model. So they have the same bonus action though. So what you do is like if you're playing Ophelia, who's a shooty crew that likes to like sit back and take pot shots for the first couple turns before everything really gets connected, then
Hmm.
it's giving them the ability to cheat off the top of their deck, and then when something's finally in their face, boom, it's a 10 soulstone beater.
That is terrifying. Just all of a sudden you're charging this gun line, and then this hamster wheel of death just rolls you
Shows
over.
up. You just got to be careful because as soon as you put that upgrade on the effigy, your opponent's gunning for it because
Oh
they know
yeah.
it's coming.
Yeah, so that, I mean, it's only 4 points for the effigy, but the offset is you have to wait till turn 3.
Yep.
So looking at tournaments, though, I notice a lot of people only get into sometimes round 4 of their tournament game. So do you think it's worth bringing the effigy if you're only going to get maybe 1 or 2 turns out of it?
It just depends on
Kind
it's
of,
just
kind of
Malifaux.
you
It
as a
depends on
player.
the game. It depends on the player. It depends on
Okay.
what you're trying to do with it. Like if you just need a 4 soulstone piece, then bring it just the effigy. If you really need to get across the board by turn 1 or 2, bring the emissary. That extra 4 points because it's 6 points total with the upgrade and the effigy. So you're kind of discounting yourself 4 points. Sometimes that 4 points is 4 more soul stones to keep your master alive.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's an extra model, and then sometimes that 4 points doesn't matter. It just
Yeah.
as you get better with building crews, you get better with figuring out like where you can afford to bring in that big model versus the small model. If you're going up against Levy, you probably don't want to bring the effigy because it's going to die.
It's going to die.
Yeah,
Yep.
the emissary is probably going to die too. I mean, like unless you can keep it away from Levy, which
Good luck.
it's kind of running the corners instead of going straight into Levy.
So another versatile model that I really like, John, and I've played her now a couple of times, is Gracie. I think Gracie's an amazing. First off, it's an amazing model because who doesn't love a giant pig that has pots and pans for its armor? But then in game, it just does so much work.
The weird depth of expression on that model is just it's crazy. Like that
It's a
model
blank stare.
that model has more going on its face than almost any other model in the game. Like
Yeah.
when you see a well painted Gracie, it's just like looking into your soul for a second. You're like, all right, you need to back off, Gracie. Like, come on.
Oh
So of course,
man.
I'm a huge fan of Big Trouble in Little China. So Gracie is a reference to that movie. So is Bert Jepson, her companion.
Yep.
So I love that and already. But then you bring an 8 soulstone model that's insanely hard to kill, has ride with me, has solid triggers. Like there's
I mean,
nothing not to like.
as crit strike, so I mean, it's doing like 3, 5, 6 damage.
Or it's eating something and healing, or using
Yep.
tear off a bite and healing itself up. Like
It can give
Gracie's,
itself fast. I mean, it's
yeah,
good.
Gracie's amazing. Gracie's amazing. I would say Emissary and Gracie are like the top two that you grab when you're looking for a versatile model. The other like MVP model for me is Gluttony.
Okay, you want to explain that because I have no experience with gluttony.
All right, so Gluttony is first of all 6 move, so gotta love that. It's a henchman, so it can use soul stones to save itself. It's got a decent defense, but it's got this really cool ability called Maddening Drums, and
Okay.
basically it can target a scheme marker and then target another model 6 inches away from that scheme marker, or any marker, not just a scheme marker, any marker, and then push that model into the marker. The model takes 2 damage and the marker is gone.
Okay.
So if you're trying, like if you know your opponent's playing breakthrough or sabotage, you can keep Gluttony back, and basically as soon as they drop their marker, Gluttony just pulls them into them. Not only have they lost their marker, but their backfield scheme runner is now taking damage. Or you can do the reverse, throw a marker up pretty far up the board, and have Gluttony push your model. Now, if you can get it kind of to where you're set up correctly, that it doesn't actually, something stops it from pushing all the way, you've got a model pushed up into a good position. So it's both an offensive and defensive model at the same time.
Now, the last versatile model that I want to ask about, John, is I got a bunch of Bayou stuff that I traded for and I bought. And one of the models that came in it was Mctavish, and it's a really sweet looking model. I mean, does Mctavish see a lot of play outside of Swamp Fiends, or is he only a Swamp Fiend kind of henchman?
Mctavish is sort of a hot button in the Bayou community.
Oh, okay.
There are people
I do not know this.
There are people that love him. There are people that think he's great. My problem with Mctavish is that he is sort of like, he's got a min 3 damage, which is awesome. He's got a gun that ignores cover, which is really good. He's got on the move, which means he gets a 3-inch move at the beginning of his turn. All that is good, but the problem is, like, for a 9-10 Soulstone model, you're really kind of looking to specialize. You want a model that's going to do something really good. So in Bayou, you've got the first mate, which can get really far and hit pretty hard. You've got Mancha, who can get 3 hits out. You've got the Emissary, which is super fast. You've got Alphonse, who has toss, to toss people up, and he can get fast really easily and hit people very, very hard. Mctavish tries to be both a range model and a melee model at the same time. And I think that he loses a little bit of opportunity, kind of there. Some people love him. Some people bring him with Zoraida, or they bring him with Ma, and, they do. But I've just never gotten value out of him when I play him. Like, every time I play him, I'm like, man, I wish this was a first mate.
Okay, well, I'll keep that in mind. I actually don't have Zoraida yet, so maybe once I get her, I'll put them on the table and try to figure them out.
Well, that's my caveat. That's one thing I will always say about Malifaux is put it on the table. If you don't have it, proxy it, put it on the table, make your own decisions, because individual play styles can vary drastically.
Oh, that's huge.
Huge. And so, models that do great for me might not do so great for everybody else, and models that do really good for somebody else, I can take. Like, I'm a terrible Zoraida player. I just cannot wrap my head around her play wise. Like, I know what she's supposed to do. I've read the cards 100 times, but when it comes to actually, like, getting her on the table, I fail horribly every time.
Okay. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get into some of these keywords now, and we'll kind of we'll go through who they are, what they do, and then what are they, like, really good at. So let's just kind of start off with. Let's go ahead and I want to talk about your baby. And this is a crew that I actually have played now 3 times. And I'm using one of the lists I'm starting with one of the lists that you kind of shared with me. And I'm actually playing Somer. So this is the big hat keyword. So we already talked about his background a little bit, but generally speaking, what is Somer trying to do on the table?
Somer is our board control master. That's actually the best way to describe it. He's trying to swarm the board. He's trying to get some range superiority. He's just looking to out activate you and put pressure on you from all angles. He's a complex master. I would say him and Sandeep are probably 2 of the most complex masters in the game. I would recommend 15 games with him before you start seeing exactly how everything clicks, because he's got auras on top of auras on top of abilities on top of triggers. It's just a whole you can miss 10 things in a single turn.
Well, I think it wasn't until, so this was my second game I was playing with him, and it wasn't until turn 3 I think I looked and I saw Pig Eating Grin, and I was like, holy crap, when my stuff dies I get to shoot at you. Good God.
And that's maybe the second best ability on his card. Third,
What would you say is the first one then?
Bayou 2 card, without a doubt.
Okay.
Cheating off top of the deck.
You love that.
God, it's amazing. It's amazing because it gives you so much value. Like if you basically consider with standard Malifaux math that a positive flip is roughly considered +1 to a stat. Yeah. And Bayou Bash already gives them that +2 to a stat.
It's so good.
So you're basically with Bayou 2 card adding a third plus to your, a third number to your stat. So it can make even insignificant Bayou gremlins into murder machines.
Yeah, it really does.
And
I was so surprised. Good. I was playing it and I was adding up Bayou Bash, and there was so many times with Bayou Bash, my duels were all the way up to like 15, 19, and I'm just like, how is this little goblin getting this high? It just doesn't seem like it should work this way. But
right, they're stat 3. Why are they doing this? And it's because it's just because of several of the overlapping auras and Bayou 2 card it just makes it like such a good ability. It does require you to bubble up. Like that's the biggest weakness maybe of Sommer is that you do have to have
somebody who's blast heavy.
Well, yeah, somebody who's blast heavy can take him down, and anybody that can be able to walk through your wall of Bayou gremlins and get to Sommer can
maybe flyers.
Flyers, Nekema can be kind of scary if you don't know your positioning really well. Terra can pop up behind him and surprise him. Sonya is I've played a couple Sonya games, and that's God, it's horrible.
And then another thing I loved about Sommer, and I actually didn't realize this till the end of the game, John, was that he has "Make Me Proud, Boys." And boy. I didn't realize I could just send my gremlins up and just blow them up.
Yep, and the best thing about it is that also ties back in with Pig Eating Grin. So you send your boys in, you blow them up, whatever model.
Oh my God! It just says kill. 2 damage. Oh my God!
Yep.
Oh man!
You discard a card. You draw a card because they died.
Yep. Demise trigger.
Then you discard a card, which you could discard the one you just drew if it's a shit card, and suddenly Georgie and Olaf is shooting at them. Georgie and Olaf probably has focus because you have shouting orders. So from old Cranky. So like there's just all this inner synergy with Sommer, and that's his big deal. Is like he's just this Rube Goldberg machine of if you're within 12 inches of Sommer and Georgie and Olaf, you're dead.
Well, I think that's kind of why I might like Sommer, because I've played him now 3 times, and I'm really liking it because it's almost like when I played Guild Ball, I liked to play crews. Well, I say crews now, but they were, teams of basically with the Brewers, and the Brewers were all about synergy and auras. So I think this really fits well into that kind of thing that I already did anyways in Guild Ball.
For sure. Yeah.
Let me ask you about these totems, because I'm not sure what the mosquitoes are supposed to be doing. Are they just running into things and just tying them up, or just adding a +1? I mean, what are they supposed to be doing?
Well, you have a cute little summon called the Gremlin Crier. And the Gremlin Crier can reach out with an Obey that has a built-in suit. So you only need usually a 7, 6 or a 7. I can't remember exactly right off the top of my head.
How much Bayou you're talking about the threatened beating.
And then it has the trigger built in, which says that they will get to insignificant models can then do interacts. So you're sending your mosquitoes up, and you're flying up, and you're making you're dropping interacts where people don't expect interacts to be. And if they kill the mosquitoes, you can summon them back because they're minions. So you're not losing anything.
Oh man, I didn't even think about that. You could bring them back. Okay, I see that.
Like I said, it's complex. Like there's just layers and layers and layers of Sommer.
So there's one more model that I wanted to talk about. You already talked about Georgie and Olaf a little bit, which that model's amazing. I would recommend if somebody looks at that model and you see Olaf with the Olaf golden knuckles, I'm just like, that's pretty cool. But the model that I've been impressed with, John, is this good old boy.
Yeah.
Them good old boys, they're pretty fucking good.
Super tough. Super tough. And Ricochet is a ridiculous trigger.
Yeah, I like Ricochet. I've gotten some use out of that. We'll talk about it when we get to Brewmaster, but the Drunken Strength with Broken Bottle, or you can hit the Onslaught trigger to get another attack. It's just
Yep.
ridiculous.
Yep. The one thing about Ricochet that's very important to remember is that Ricochet benefits from whatever your damage flip is on the main attack. So if you're on a straight from the main attack, then the Ricochet trigger is also on a straight. If you're on a positive from the main attack,
Okay.
the Ricochet trigger is also on a positive. So the Ricochet benefits from your focus as well.
Okay.
So
That's really good.
yeah, it's important because and the best thing is you're just bending bullets. Like, oh, they got their support guy behind a building. Nope,
I
just
mean,
try
Georgie and
support.
Olaf have that too.
Yeah,
That's man,
yeah,
that's so
and
good. They're just bullets slinging all over the place, man.
yeah. If you're playing against Sommer, like you have to look at you. Even if Georgie and Olaf have gone, like suddenly you have to think, well, what can happen that this Bayou Gremlin might die? I don't want to get engaged with this Bayou Gremlin because if Sommer hasn't gone, Georgie's going to shoot something off the board. Like I've used Sommer's turn to shoot in, do 4 damage on a severe, summoned in 3 Bayou Gremlins on top of the henchman that I just shot.
Yep.
Then make me proud with this last activation. Killed all 3 of them, drawn 3 cards, discard 3 cards, and took 3 shots to kill that henchman. It's dumb.
Wow.
It's just so dumb.
Yeah, that's really good. I'm a big fan of Sommer. I just there's so many possibilities, and I love masters and crews that really let you get creative with the gameplay because just the fact of what you said right there, that's something I haven't thought of yet. And then I'm sure there's about 1,000 or 1,000,000 different scenarios where you can just manipulate the board just so creatively with Sommer. It's just really fun.
Well, keep in mind, I'm probably like 30, maybe 40 games in with Sommer. And that's where I'm at. Like, he is such a complex master. He's not one, like, if you're just brand new in the game, Sommer's going to be a hard one to wrap your head around. Like, he is so tough. Go Maw for a minute. Like, Ophelia, try something a little less and then come back because while Sommer has all these options, he's not, like, you have to know what you need to summon in. Do you need a Spit Hog to heal yourself up? Do you need the Crier to go out and, start obeying things? Does a good old boy getting in their face, is that the important thing that you need? Like he's not an easy master to start out with. And there's so much to remember too. Like you need a flow chart.
Oh yeah. Yeah, if you almost need to have tokens down for the auras just so your opponent knows what's going on. It's
yeah.
I was playing a buddy of mine and he's like, "Man, what aura is this now?" I'm like, "Well, it's this aura, and then you did this, and it triggered that aura, and then he had Paul Crockett did something that triggered his aura, and we went down like this huge flow chart. It was pretty ridiculous."
Yeah. Well, and that's where Vassal's been kind of nice too, because you can see like exactly where your auras are in Vassal, which it's harder to figure out. Like you have to. I think one of the important things, and it's actually an important Malifaux thing in general, is to kind of be able to state your intention. Like this model, when you move it, if there's any question about is it within 8 inches of Sommer, you need to say this model is within 8 inches of Sommer. Or if you're moving your opponent's moving their model in, they need to say this intention is to be right outside of 8 inches of Sommer.
Yeah, and I do that a lot too, and I think that's a good thing I got from Guild Ball is a lot of times I'll just be like, okay, I'm going to be outside of your 1 inch engagement, or I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to be base to base with this marker. So it's definitely, I'd say if you want to work on your clean play when you play a game like Malifaux, stating your intention will help go a long way, because then if there's a bump or if there's something that happens, we can go back and be like, okay, yeah, you were base to base with this, I was over here.
And that's the Cody Hyatt special. He is the king of clean play. Like he is probably one of the most like clean play players I've ever met. I mean, it really helps you up your game too, because like when he starts doing it, you're like, okay, I need to start doing this because I'm seeing where it's benefiting him.
Did you ever play games? You played a little Guild Ball. Did you ever play with Glenwood?
I don't think
He's out of
so.
Raleigh. So
Maybe.
he's a very technical player, and it overwhelms some people because I mean he's just a guy who just expects clean play, and when you don't, he'll call you out on it.
Right.
So I mean, it helps the game go smoother when people are playing the way it's intended, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So let's kind of go from probably arguably the one of the more complicated masters in Bayou, and let's go to Mawtucket because Maw is really good, but definitely a lot easier to kind of comprehend. So I mean, Maw is kind of this angry goblin woman. So what is she trying to do there, John?
Ma wants to beat people with her spoon and order all of her kin around.
Oh, she's
That's
yelling at
Yeah,
people.
that's what she's doing. Horrible hollering. And she's less complex to play than Sommer, but she by no means has less trick. I mean, the keyword is
Oh,
tricksy.
yeah, that's the key word.
Yeah. One of the things I think that's really important about Ma is that you have to. She has lots of different modes she can play,
Oh,
and
for sure.
you really kind of need to figure that out at crew build because her keyword has some crazy good stuff, and there's like it's kind of to these extremes where you've got super squishy glass cannons like the Rooster Riders, or you've got these like very survivable cheap minions like test subjects and survivors.
Yep.
So you kind of like you have to come across like which way do I want to play Ma this game? So there's all these little silly little tricks like test subjects the models aren't out, so you haven't seen much of them played, but they're crazy good models. They
Yeah, they look good.
they can't be blown up. You can't execute them. You have to kill them with damage. They can bounce around in her traps, and every time they get injured, they build their stats up. So like you can have some pretty like 8 or 9 defense 5 stone hard to kill minions running around. Like they're ridiculous. They're not going to do a whole lot of damage, but you're going to spend too much AP trying to get rid of these things.
I will say that a lot of the stuff with Maw and her crew, I love is on the front of their cards. Like careful planning is one of the things I love most about Mawtucket. The fact that even with just cheating in the game, for the initiative, you get a benefit depending on which suit that you want to cheat in. So I really love that because even if you lose, there's something cool you can do. And that could be gaining pass tokens, which I haven't done that one as much, but I've drawn 2 cards. I've moved 2 friendly models within 3 inches. And then the shielded one I've used a little bit, but I mostly either use the move one or the draw 2 cards one.
Draw
Those
two
are the
cards is
probably.
big.
Oh yeah, it's huge, especially you get a crap hand.
Pass tokens can be really good too, though. It's all about, and that's what comes down to Ma with her flexibility. She has pushes; she can push people in and out. She has the pit traps; she can create these pit traps and knock people into them. So like you think you're good. You look at Ma and she's like, okay, she's a stat. She's swinging with a 3. Well, then she has crit strike. If you have a stone and a high ram, suddenly she's min 5,
Yeah.
and then she's knocking. She's putting you around a pit trap. So the first swing, she might hit you with a shove aside, which pushes you in the pit trap, makes you injured. You take a damage, and then the next thing you know, she is just wailing on you, and the
Oh
damage
yeah.
can just come out of nowhere. It's very explosive. We kind of talked about that high risk, high reward. Like most of her stuff is pretty glass cannony. Like bushwhackers go down pretty quickly if you get into them. Rooster Riders go down pretty quickly if you get into them. Sparks, but they're very punchy. And then the other
Yeah.
half of her crew, the Pork Chop isn't technically part of her crew, but it might as well be. The survivors, the test subjects, Big Brain Bryn, Trixie Belle, they're all fairly difficult to take down just
Mhm.
right off the top, and they sacrifice their damage potential for board control.
Yeah, she's strong. I mean, the early turns when you're doing horrible hollering and you're giving out focus to everybody within 3, that's really good. I mean, Big Brain Bryn, a lot of people argue that he's an auto include in any keyword just because of how good he is. So I don't know if you're in that camp, but I know a lot of people are.
He's not doesn't go in everyone, but yeah, spoiler alert, he's in Sommer every single time because calculate the possibilities plus Bayou 2 card is insane levels of deck stacking. Like,
seems pretty good.
Yeah, and backtrack just a second. I have seen the Red Joker 3 times in a single turn playing Sommer because of Bryn and Bayou 2 card.
That's pretty good.
Yep, that's gross. That's gross. Like, you think the Red Joker 1 time turn is really bad. Seeing it twice a turn is kind of demoralizing. Seeing it 3 times in a turn swings the game to your advantage in a huge, huge way.
Yeah, when you look at calculate the possibilities, though, I believe because I think they changed that up when they did the errata in March because you can only do it once per
it's
turn.
once per turn, yeah.
But now it says 3 non-Joker cards in the model's discard pile.
Well, yeah, but with Bayou 2 card, you're going through your deck faster, and then Sommer draws cards because every time a Bayou Gremlin dies, you draw a card, and then he's discarding a card.
So you're just saying you went through your deck so much that you had it come up 3 times.
Yep.
Okay.
It's dumb. That's real dumb. But then, like with Ma 2, you've got Sparks. Sparks is he's kind of a hotly debated. People either really love him or they really don't. Like, he's very easy to kill, but he puts bombs in people's bellies. So if you hit them, then they do blasts. So they blast back onto you, and then if they die, they explode. So he can take models like she can bring the vaunted Arcanist miners, Soulstone miners with her. Yeah. So he can put that on one of the Soulstone miners and then have it show up in your crew. And now suddenly you've got this armor 1 thing in your crew that if you hit it, it's going to blow up on your people. And that's not what you want. Like, you don't want it to be there. So Sparks has his moments too. Like, he can do, some pretty silly things if you're not expecting him. The problem is he doesn't have any defenses. He's just hanging out there in the breeze if you get close to him, and he's done. Like, he's only got 7 wounds, average defenses, nothing big. Like, you could put disguised on him, I guess, if you really want to.
Yeah, the last thing I wanted to ask you, which I don't know if I'd do that with Sparks either, but what is the little lass usually doing? I mean, I played a few games, and the little lass kind of starts off doing some hollering herself, and then I don't know, she kind of falls behind the crew sometimes.
Oh, she's baby ma. So what she's doing is, you get into somebody, you don't quite kill them. The next thing you know, little lass comes in and surprise smacks them for a lot of damage because she's going to be near ma, so she's probably going to have focus on her. For a tiny totem, she's got a pretty decent damage track.
Yeah, it's a 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, so she's going to surprise, like, smash somebody in the face, or she's going to horrible holler in them out of position, and suddenly they're not scoring their point.
Yeah, that's actually the thing I started doing this last game I played, John, is I actually started using that offensively and getting I actually won the game because of it, because we were playing Recover the Evidence, and I basically used horrible hollering to basically holler somebody away from the last marker, and then they were on the other side of the trees and they couldn't even get to it. So it's cool how you can use that in kind of 2 different modes.
And never underestimate pushing people into traps. Injured 1 is big. Injured 2 is devastating. Injured 3, that model's dead.
Yeah, that's for sure. We got Mawtucket, which, like we said, she's a great master. Definitely recommend playing her. She's a lot of fun. Rooster Riders are really nuts, but you're right. They are definitely glass cannons, but I tell you what, they can spike 5 damage pretty quick sometimes.
Yep. And I think she's probably one of the easiest to build a full crew. If you just get a box of Rooster Riders and you get Mawtucket, her main box, you've got 3 Bushwhackers, one of the few minions that I'm okay bringing 3 of just right out. So you got 3 Bushwhackers, you got 2 Rooster Riders, 2 or 3 Rooster Riders, Ma, Trixie, you got a whole crew. Like right there's your 50 soulstones to start playing the game with. Like if you're looking to get into the game, she's a great buy.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's actually, and when we're talking about these keywords, I would definitely start with which one of these sounds the coolest, buy their core box, and then just look at maybe some of the ones we're talking about, pick up one of those boxes, add it to the crew, and then just play around with what you like, because that's the thing. There's so many cool models in most keywords that you really can kind of pick what you like and kind of throw it in there.
There are very few models that I just like look at and go, yeah, I'm never ever going to take this. Like I think Bayou has maybe two. No, I think I have officially played every single Bayou model in at least one game now since they
Nice.
bumped smugglers up and made them amazing. Um, yeah, I think I've played just about
Okay,
every.
so let me ask you, what did they do to smugglers that actually had you want to put them on the table?
They gave them the appraisability, which is really good. It's what the prospectors have in an outcast. Basically, allows them
Outcasts,
to eat
yeah.
a scheme marker, or eat a marker, and get an effect based on the flip. There's no good or no bad options, so it's pretty good. They can eat enemy scheme markers. They can drag behind, so they can walk and pull markers up with them. So you can drop a marker with something small on turn one, and the smuggler is dragging it up the table to get it where you need to be on turn 2 or 3.
Yeah, and that's infamous keyword, so that's in Zip Screw.
And they're also versatile.
Oh, they are, aren't they? Oh, that's cool. All right, well, let's go with one, and maybe you can sell me on this a little bit because I haven't played this keyword yet, and I actually don't have the models yet. So this is one that I'm kind of interested to see what you say about, John. But tell me a little bit about this Whiz Bang crew.
I knew that
So
was
this is
coming.
Wong. This is Wong, right?
Yeah, this is Wong. So
Okay, tell me a little bit about it.
another hotly debated, technically considered our worst master. I would definitely say he's one of the more difficult masters to wrap your head around because
Okay.
he plays in very, as Jesse Watson would say, a very oblique kind of style. Wong is basically, he has this bag that he stole from some Ten Thunders person. He's another reference, by the way. He's another reference to Big Trouble in Little China. So
Yep.
he has his 8 demon bag, which gives him magic that he barely has any control over. So all of his keyword have this really great ability that allows them, anytime they take damage from a friendly model, they can get fast and a glowy token. And they can all spend a glowy token to get a suit of their choice when they declare an action.
Okay, so let me ask you this, John, because most of his keyword has evasive.
Mm-hmm.
So it says it reduces the effects of blast to 0. So do they take the damage and then it gets
He
reduced? So
has he has evasive. They have blast resistant, so they will always
do
take
they
one.
get a glowy token off that though,
Yeah,
or no?
yeah. They will
Oh, they
always,
do.
yeah, because they reduce blast down to 1, so they will always take
Ah,
1 damage. They will always get a glowy token. So Wong basically spends his first turn shooting his own people to get them all fast, and then he has Bokors that have a pulse heal that will heal everybody back up. So
okay.
you've got this crew of super fast guys running around with a lot of irreducible damage. There's like 3 sources of irreducible damage in that crew, which is pretty good. They balance it out by being very, very squishy. Alphonse is kind of hard to take down. Swine Cursed can be hard to take down, but for the most part, like they play on this sort of a like counter where the longer in the game that they go, the less you're getting out of them. So turn
Okay.
1, turn 2, they're coming in hot.
Pre- Pretty big turns.
Right. And then if you don't accomplish what you need to accomplish, turn 3, turn 4, turn 5, they start to lose because, the less life they have, the harder it is to get that glowy off to get them built up on these glowy tokens.
Now I do have a taxidermist model. Now is that worth anything? Because I do have that one.
Taxis are fun. I like taxis.
Okay.
They're height 1. So a cute thing you can do with them is put them in a pigapult and throw them across the board. Wong is also height 1. So if you don't like where Wong is and you think he's in trouble, you
Just shoot him
can
on
put him in
over.
the Pigapult, shoot him across the board. And he does some. He's one of our few masters that really does a lot of ski marker tricks. He has an
Okay.
ability called a New Horizon, which is awesome. Basically, he targets. Sorry, he doesn't have a New Horizon. It's called Launch into Space. He targets a marker, and it's any kind of marker. Then he takes it off the board, and at the start of the next turn, he drops it, and he has a trigger to drop a second marker anywhere within his line of sight.
That's
So,
pretty good.
yeah, he can basically make markers appear across the board, which is big for Bayou because we don't have a lot of marker. We've got a lot of marker removal. We don't have a lot of extra marker creation. Like there's no false claim. There's no,
Yeah.
silly stuff like that
Yeah,
in
no
Bayou.
drop it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So I like Wong for that. I think Wong needs a champion, someone to jump up and really play him, unlock his potential, and just kind of show people like this is how Wong can be played and played well. And he's a lot of fun. Like regardless, he's a lot of fun. But whereas like Sommer is that Rube Goldberg machine that does a lot of
Yeah.
work, Wong can be a Rube Goldberg machine that ultimately doesn't do a whole lot. Like you're doing all this stuff and then it doesn't really pan out.
A term that I've been playing a lot of EDH the last few years, and I think a lot of people in Magic community would call that dirtling, where you're just kind of doing some cool things, but
Absolutely.
you really don't get much out of it.
Absolutely. Wong also has shockwaves. He has multiple shockwaves, and
Hmm.
shockwaves are they're hot and cold too. So either your opponent fails them and they do a lot of damage, or your opponent has the cards off the top of their deck and they don't fail them or they pass them and you didn't do anything. So unlike masters
Hmm.
that have like a 3, 5, 6 damage track that can come in and just smash something in the face, Wong doesn't always, live up to the potential.
Now, can you tell me anything? And this last model we'll talk about, and then we'll move on to our next keyword. But tell me a little bit about Sami Lacroix because he's kin and he's also whiz bang, and he's kind of like this voodoo looking
Mm-hmm.
kind of big hat wearing guy. So what's up with that model?
Last edition, Sammy was the apprentice of Zoraida.
Okay.
So she was kind of learning, once again, imitation. It's a big thing for the Bayou. She was
Hmm.
learning how to be a voodoo priestess or whatever it is, swamp hag, whatever it is that Zoraida is.
Yeah.
And she had last edition, she had an upgrade that allowed her to, or she could use any master's personal upgrades because they had personal upgrades back then. So she basically became like a mini master. So that's why her model looks like that. Like she kind of has this like voodoo style, is
Yeah.
because she was sort of an apprentice, like studying up to be a master. I'm actually a
Okay.
little bit sad with all the shuffling and rearranging. They didn't kind of like because in the fluff, the Gremlins kind of booted Serena out a little bit,
Yeah.
and I was really hoping in third edition that they would slide Sammy in as a master, but she's still second fiddle.
Well, isn't Bayou one of the only factions that didn't get a new master in the new edition?
Correct, but considering only like 15 total models were played in second edition, we basically got a full new faction anyway.
Yeah. Well, and that's the one cool thing coming into third edition that I love the keyword system. So to me, I definitely am enjoying that, and I think I like it better than what people have told me second edition was like. So I'm pleasantly surprised with the system that we currently
I
have.
agree. Second edition was definitely a good game. By the end of second edition, we were kind of looking at a lot of um, playing all star lists where you just took the best in
Yeah.
your faction. And Gremlins was probably because Gremlins did that from the very, very beginning. You were
Yeah.
taking the same models no matter what. You were taking Francois because he could blow things up. You were taking Rami because he had a sniper rifle. Like you were just taking all the same models over and over and over again, and it wasn't really that fun.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and move on to our next keyword. So we'll go ahead and stick with Sammy's kin. So we have Ophelia with the young Lacroix. I mean, what is this crew? This crew just looks like they want to shoot the crap out of you.
It is. I mean, they're basically directly kind of like parodying the family over in Guild, and they have even all the same. They probably have the most named models, most enforcers of any keyword
Yeah.
in the faction. So, and you can play pretty heavy. Like you've got Maris, you've got Francois, you've got Rami, you've got Raphael, you've got all of these, and Sami. So, and you can play very enforcer heavy, and they are on the table. One thing that the rest of Bayou doesn't really do very well. They are super tanky.
Oh, are they?
So they get if the model is bigger than they are, which most things are size 1.
Are bigger than size 1.
Yeah. So most of the gremlins are size 1. So if that happens, they instantly get shielded. So they're soaking up points. And if the stat is higher, they get a +1 to the duel, not to their stat.
Oh, wow.
To the duel, which is really important. Yeah. So they're surprisingly tanky. They do a crap ton of damage. They're pretty versatile because Ophelia can pull out all these different upgrades for different kinds of attacks that throw out injured and ignore line of sight and do blasts, and so she has like all these different things that she does with a really resilient crew. And basically, she's going to get in there and be your public enemies recover intel sort of. I'm going to hang out and shoot you, and you're not going to do much to stop me.
Yeah, that I kind of, because I will say that I play a lot of Maris in my Infamous crew. I haven't gotten Ophelia yet on the table because I just got her, but I can say I played Maris a lot, and I don't think I've played a game yet where Maris has died.
Well, I'll tell everybody right now thinking about getting into Bayou, buy Maris.
Yeah, Maris is good.
Buy Maris, bring her out a keyword if you got to. She's one of the best scheme runners in the faction. She's
matter of fact, she's so good. I have 2 of her.
I love Maris. Maris is great in Infamous. Maris is great in Kin. I bring her out of faction or out of keyword all the time. She's just good.
Well, just the fact that she has 2-inch engagement because she has up and away. But that up and away, I really love using that, and we'll talk about it again with Zip. But just the fact that you can move people off of objectives, you can put them in bad situations. It's really good.
You can get around defensive triggers.
Yep.
Because it's a move duel. She's got concealment. People don't really want to, you can put her into a position where people don't want to go after her because she blows up when she dies.
Yeah.
She's got that amazing tome trigger on her bonus action so that she can fling out scheme markers. So it's very easy for her to scheme marker, walk, bonus action, throw a scheme marker out. And she's done spread them out in a single activation almost. So
yeah, I was gonna say she can do sabotage in a single activation. There's a lot of 2 schemes out there that she could just do by herself.
That second point of breakthrough, she basically got it down in 1 turn. It's so good.
Let me just ask you, out of the upgrades that Ophelia can kind of put out, what's your favorite upgrade that she puts on herself or others?
I mean, trash cannon is just amazing to say. I got a trash cannon. It's fantastic.
I'm gonna attach a trash cannon to her,
and it's good. It's a 1/2/4 with a blast on the end. It drops a scrap marker in the contact. It can do critical strike, and it's got swift action, so you can take it again. So Ophelia has this thing where she can ditch an upgrade to deal an extra point of damage to Plink. And she has a trigger on her main attack, her main gun, to take an attack off of her upgrade. So it's very, very possible that Ophelia can just chain into all these attacks. For instance, Jackdaw is a very hard master typically to deal with because he can discard a card and reduce damage down to 1. So when he has 6 wounds and you're only doing 1 damage, with most people only do 3 attacks, that's hard to get to him. But Ophelia here is I attack him, I get the trigger, I attack him again, I discard this upgrade, I ping him for a damage, I'll attack him, I'll get the trigger, I'll just do the attack, I'll ping him again. Like the next thing
Yeah,
you
so
know,
it's like,
he's dead.
yeah, it's like even if you do discard, you're still taking one, and hey, you have 5 damage on you now.
Or like Hoffman, because Bayou's not super great into
Armor, yeah.
armor. She doesn't care because she's doing the thing to beat armor sometimes is volume of attacks instead of quality of attacks.
Yeah, and she seems really flexible because her upgrades let her kind of adjust into different matchups. I mean, I'm looking at Hooch Igniter, which I just love the name,
Yeah,
but
there's
I mean,
not a bad
it puts out
upgrade.
Blast. Yeah, it puts out Blast. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's one that does. There's a glass finger flinger that does injured and a blast on injured. Like doing injured
Yeah,
to multiple models in one AP is super good, and you can do that with the young. And if they're
yeah.
cheating to stop the young from getting to them, that's less times they're cheating when your good models are coming in to do damage. So it's just like kind of with Sommer, where you've got that activation control. Like a Bayou Gremlin on its own is not going to kill you. 4 Bayou Gremlins shooting into you when you don't have any cards left, suddenly it's looking not as good. So you have all these cheap models in Bayou that allow you. I've played a Ma list that played Ma and her totem, a Bokor, 3 Bushwhackers, 3 Survivors. And it's absurd. Like 14-inch guns. I have 6 14-inch guns off of 6 and 5 stone models.
I I just have to laugh though. This is why I love Malifaux, but also why I love Bayou, because the young Lacroix, they have a tactical they have a tactical action. It's called I need an adult.
Yeah, yeah. And ignoring the weird female sculpt that is way out of proportion and strange, the 2 other young Lacroix are probably 2 of the best sculpts in the game. The
Oh, are you
one
talking about the
mooning,
one that's
yeah.
getting talking about the one that's getting blasted back is kind of
Yeah.
weird. She's really big.
Yeah, she's huge. She's way out of scale. But like the 2 on each other's shoulders and the one mooning, like it's just
Yeah.
such great, just character for Bayou in general.
God damn it, John. I wouldn't have noticed that for a long time, but now that's bugging me.
Oh, how big?
That
Yeah, it's been an issue.
It is so bad now that I'm
Fingers
looking at it.
crossed. Fingers crossed. We haven't seen her box yet. Maybe we'll get a new sculpt.
Maybe
Fingers
she's
crossed.
a giant gremlin. Maybe, I don't know.
Could be. I mean, Lenny's there.
Yeah, right. Yeah, let's go on to our next keyword. Let's go with one that has recently been talked about on the Third Floor Wars. They actually just talked about the Sui keyword with Ulix not too long ago. So I won't go too much into it because, I mean, Craig does some awesome deep dives on it. But what do you love about the Sui crew?
It is absolutely one of the, and in a keyword in a faction with Zip, it is still one of the fastest crews in the game. Like
Yeah.
you will be shocked at how fast a wall of bacon is in your deployment zone. Like turn 1, there are 2 war pigs in your deployment zone, and you're going, how did I lose this game right here?
How did we get here?
Right. And it's because here's these pigs. Now, he is not a great master if your ability to if your hand control is not good. He eats cards like you would not believe. He needs high TNs. He is you really like he actually, I would say, aside from the fact that there's a bunch of models that you need to play him, he's not a bad one to learn on because it will teach you hand control.
Different mechanics too.
Yeah. And it will teach you, like, I need this card for this TN.
Mm-hmm.
I can't just waste this card on an attack. Like, I have to figure out what I'm going to use each card in my hand for. And also, another great thing about Ulix is if you have a warped sense of humor, the Nightmare Sculpts are just, they're so great. They're ponies.
Oh, yeah, that I saw that one.
Yeah, they're ponies.
I will say this, John, and you can correct me if I'm wrong with Ulix, that I feel like he's a crew that if you're not disciplined with your positioning, it's going to fall apart
Yep.
because looking at like old Major's aura and Penelope's aura and where you want your pigs to be synergized, and if you get them out of position and out of their bubbles, that they just get murdered.
You played Guild Ball, so you probably already do this. But if you're playing Sommer, if you're playing Ulix, honestly, if you're playing anybody, Wong as well, practice unpacking your first turn. It's incredibly important because
Oh yeah,
like Sommer has so many models. Sommer and Ulix both have so many models and a couple big models that like if you don't know when you want to activate them and how you want to move them, you can get in your own way. And the next thing you know, like you've blocked yourself off. So like Wong especially, Wong wants to shoot everybody, and but he doesn't want to be left behind. So
yeah,
Wong has to be able to move up, turn around, shoot everybody twice, or you bring Gracie with him, and you know you pull him up with Ride with Me. But unbacking your models on that first turn, I mean, it might just be a good Malifaux skill in general to have, like just having a solid idea of this is the order I want to move these models. This is where I want to place these
yep,
models because nothing sucks more than realizing you lost your game in deployment because you
yep.
deployed wrong.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where I think, especially like you said, playing Guild Ball, but definitely playing Malifaux too, is when you realize that you can't do something because you outpositioned yourself.
Yep.
I mean, that's a feel bad for yourself because I can only imagine having old Major or having Gracie in a Ulux crew and then realizing that, oh, my war pig's in the way and I have, only a 1 inch reach, because that's the cool thing, that if you're in the bubble, you get an extra inch reach if you're within Ulix's, I think it's 6 inch aura.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, that just feels bad when you're like, I boxed myself out and now I
Right.
can't do
Or
anything.
I blocked my line of sight because pigs all have
Oh,
big
that's the
butts.
worst.
Yeah.
So can I bitch for a second,
Go
John?
ahead.
Because so coming from Guild Ball where auras were just auras, I got so mad when I played like my first couple games. And I was like, okay, and I get this aura, and then my buddy Scott's like, yeah, you don't have line of sight. I'm like, why the fuck do I need line of sight? That doesn't matter. He's like, yeah, you kind of got to have line of sight. I was like,
You
oh,
kind
are
of
you
do.
kidding
Yeah.
me?
Yeah.
Oh God, it's the worst.
Well, and that's what
But
made Zoraida so strong before they fixed her. Is that originally her eyes in the night allowed her to target, so she could use Swamp Fiend models within
mhm,
12 inches and then do a 12-inch obey off of that Swamp Fiend model, but it wasn't an aura. So you
it's doing
can
pretty
bring
good.
Gracie, hide her behind Gracie, and then she never has to be exposed. Now it's an aura, so now she has to see that model, so it's a little bit more
Yeah.
fair. You know, like
Okay, I can understand that
yeah,
then.
yeah.
Because that would be so frustrating. It's like, yeah, she's kind of shielded, or no, you get cover from Gracie, or it's
You
just
just
shielded.
Gracie's a size 3
Oh
with
yeah,
a
just
50
blocks
millimeter
too.
yeah, 50 millimeter base. You're just gonna plop Gracie in front of her, and nobody's ever gonna get to Gracie. Like you're not gonna get to her through Gracie.
Oh man, that's
And
crazy.
if you get close, she's gonna obey Gracie into your face, and then you lose.
All right, John, gun to your head. Which one's your favorite pig?
The favorite pig, Squealer.
Okay, so I haven't played this model, so what's up with the squealer?
It has a 8-inch range willpower attack. Not don't see that very often in the Bayou, so that's
Yeah, that's
awesome.
kind of
It's
nice.
got a blast on it for a 5 soulstone model. Like it also has a heal. Admittedly it's got a high TN on the heal, but you can make a pig gun line with a hog whisperer poking them and hurting them, and just like 3 squealers just blasting out onto people with willpower attacks, and it's fantastic.
Is is the squealer out yet or no?
Uh, I've seen the box listed, but I don't think it's actually out.
Okay.
That's one of the problems if you want to look into Bayou and you want to play Ulix. Like a couple of his models are still kind of hard to get. So
Yeah, Ulick's a lot of fun. I can't wait to put. I played against him. I haven't put him on the table specifically yet, but I think he's another one where if you just especially, I mean, if you're an Arkansas fan, I mean, you got to love the Suey key name.
Right,
So
right. And
just
he's
go
one
with
that
it.
like the one of the great things about Malifaux in general, and especially the Bayou, is the models play like they look. Big,
Yeah.
giant, beefy pigs being grown up and rushed into your face, or a bunch of hillbilly gremlins drinking and shooting you. Like, they play like they look, and that's fantastic. Like, you read a
Oh yeah.
story about Brewmaster or Sommer, and then you put Sommer on the table, and you're like, oh, yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Dude, I can't. I just got done with a game with Maw, and I was playing against Marcus, and I ended up winning the game. But I just the little lass and Maw just yelling at people, and I started yelling at Marcus, and Marcus ran away. I can just imagine Maw just with her wooden spoon hitting Marcus, and just be like, "Get the fuck out of here!
Right?
Ah, what's wrong with you?"
Or the little lass just kneecapping people. Like,
All right. Well, you mentioned the Brewmaster. I have a few games of Brewmaster, and dude, I tell you what, Brewmaster surprised me with how heavy that dude punches you in the face.
oh yes, oh yes. Anybody that has heard the deep dive I did with Brewmaster, me and
Oh yeah, it was great,
Roman,
great deep dive.
knows how much I love Brewy. He is. I mean, that's he drinks, he gives you poison, and he surprises you by doing 24 damage in a
Yeah,
turn.
and he is so survivable. Like it is hard to take him down.
I always put 12 cups on him, and it just
Yeah,
turns him
just to
into
make it harder.
yeah, and it just turns into this like bubble that you got to slog through of extra poison damage, and you're slowed, and you can't use bonus actions, and the whole crew's just healing around you, and then fingers obeys you, and you're just for instance, if you're playing against Hoffman, a lot of Malifaux, the pushes are on that bonus action. Like a lot of your defensive get out of dodge abilities are on the bonus action. So if you're
Yeah,
within 4 inches of Brewmaster, whether you're poisoned or slowed or not, you don't get that bonus action, and that's
yep.
big. Like because then you can't get out of the bubble. And
Yeah, and I would say the one of the tougher things with Brewmaster because it wasn't so hard for me to figure out the whole poisoning your own models thing because I don't think that's the harder part of it. I think the harder part of it is trying to get the poison up high enough on your opponents where you start to see that slow trigger start to happen.
it depends on how you're playing him.
Yeah.
So you can. I like. I always bring Trixie Belle with Brewmaster. So
Okay.
Trixie's doing the lures. So she's luring you into. She's trying to get you into Brewmaster.
So you have a
Um,
double lure there too.
yeah. So Trixie's trying to push you into Brewmaster. You've got a lot of you always want to save a crow in your hand, like a medium crow in your hand for Brewmaster's bonus action because it spews
Okay.
out poison. There's little tricks like that. The uh, golem, the whiskey golem, spews out poison in an area.
Yeah.
So you're always just kind of looking for those opportunity. The gammon when they do their little push, when they hit, as soon as they stop their push, they spew poison out. So you're looking
Yeah,
for those
I love
little
the
area of
gammon.
effect. You're looking for those little area of effect bubbles of poison where you're stacking them up. Plus, like Wesley has, what's it? I need a drink. Is that what it's called? Or have a drink?
Yeah, I have a drink.
Yeah. So Wesley has it. The Tanuki has all of these models have that two poisons big if you've already spewed onto them with Brewmaster to get one. And I don't think you're looking to ever lock down their whole crew. Like it's an impossible dream to just get everybody within 8 inches of Brewmaster. But
Yeah, I think you're
if
just
you
picking it
get
apart.
two solid models stuck in his, they're done. Like they're not going anywhere. And pound
Yeah,
for
so
pound, he's going to take any master that gets pulled into him. Like
yeah, I've definitely noticed that. So does Brewmaster like to hang out like his whole crew together, or are there certain models that can go out and scheme by themselves? I don't know how you play them.
um, Popcorn can, like Popcorn is on the move. He's a solid, just on his own guy, kind of chills out. I bring the Emissary sometimes with Brewmaster to go have an extra vector to run around. If you got Cooper making Gammon move pretty far. The Shinobi can get on their own pretty good. They got a push
Okay.
on their bonus action, so you got ways like you kind of want to have like the core bubble, and then you're kind of like spread out. Like he's not going to go score you breakthrough. You know what I mean? Like he's not going to do breakthrough. He's not going to sabotage.
I was going to say, I think that if you look at a pool and your deployment is wedge and you notice like claim jump and, you kind of want to be hanging around, like maybe you got corrupted ley lines, I think that might be a good one for Brewmaster.
Oh, yeah. Anything wedge with claim jump is probably pretty solid. I think he's really good in cut and recover intel because he's going to choose where your models drop their markers. And if he gets to one wound and he heals back up, which he's going to do, like any of his models do, they're going to drop their markers right there in range of Brewmaster. So you're not picking them up because you're slow and you can't do bonus actions. So those markers are just going to stack up and not go anywhere.
That's actually a really good point.
Like I've seen people do silly stuff like put an Akaname, put a intel marker on an Akaname. I'll turn around, smack it down to 1 health, make it drop its marker, and then it heals up because it's got poison too because it got smacked. So then it heals up at the end of the turn. And you just got a marker in your backfield like that they have to go that much further to get. And that's one less point that they could potentially score off of it because
that's pretty funny.
Yeah. So there's cute little tricks like that,
All right. Well, let's go ahead and jump into probably, if not my favorite master, definitely top 2 or 3 is Zip. Zip is the one that actually converted me from Outcast to Bayou because I realized that I was just like, man, I just kind of want to play Zip all the time in Outcast. I'm like, why am I bringing all these other, humans? I'm like, let me just play Zip.
Zip is the master I bring when I want to deny people. Like he is, when I look at the scheme pool and I say, what can't they do this game? That's where Zip comes in. Like, oh, you want to play schemes? Zip's going to eat your markers. Not going to happen. Oh, you want to be in a position? Zip's going to pick you up and move you out of position. Like, oh, you want to assassinate, but you don't have any willpower or move tools? Not going to happen. Like, you want to do claim jump? Not going to happen. Like, Zip just looks at that scheme pool, and if you're playing against a player with high meta knowledge, they're going to look at that pool and go, shit, I can't do these 3 things against Zip. So now oh, well, they've taken this and this. They've taken Hidden Martyrs because they kind of have to. And Hidden Martyrs, they might only ever get 1 point.
Like, you're never going to see somebody take Assassinate on Zip usually because Zip is just so hard to pin down.
Dreamer can do it because he targets willpower. That's one thing. Like, you have to look at what they bring. For instance, if they can ignore resistance triggers, like 10 Thunders just has an upgrade that does it. So, if you see McCabe with a Mask Agent on it, Zip is probably going to go down because McCabe's going to get to him. He's going to slow him. He's going to, do move duels. He's got all these little cute tricks that Zip just can't defend. But if they've just got defense attacks coming at you, not going to happen. Zip's going to bounce off all over the place, and he's just going to be gone. I love Zip.
And it's funny because Zip actually plays really weird because Zip actually can't scheme at all, and Earl is the one that Earl's the scheme runner. He's the one running around getting picked up and thrown to go scheme.
And Earl, cute thing to remember, Earl doesn't have to go with Zip. He can go with Maris. He can go with the Skeeter. He doesn't have to hang out with Zip.
I actually had a Flying Piglet pick him up.
Yeah. Anything can. Yeah, Flying Piglets. Actually, that's cute. I didn't think about that. A Flying Piglet would be a great little taxi for Earl. But yeah, like anything can make Zip. Because that even makes Zip an even better denial because now you have to choose: do I try to deal with Zip or do I go after Earl? If I go after Earl, Zip's going to do his own thing. and he's going to terrorize the side of the board. You know,
Because I would say you do want to kill Earl. Earl is absolutely an important person in this crew, even though he's the totem, because he actually does a lot of. He's just doing the scheming while everybody else is just wrecking your face.
yep. And marker removal. That is,
Yeah,
man. There are just some crews that just get shut down. If
yeah, with
you
free loot.
bring Karis, normally you can't remove Karis as markers. Zip does. If they bring Titania, suddenly you're picking up her underbrush markers and punching her in the face with them. I love grabbing shadow markers and punching people in the face with their own shadow markers. Of course, that begs the question, how is Mancha picking up a shadow and punching people with it? But, it's wrestling.
Because
It's
he
fine.
believes, John.
It's wrestling. It's fine. It's all fake anyway.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. He's hitting you with a goblin. It's fine.
But I mean, like, if you're Mei Feng and you rely on scrap markers, I'm going to eat them. Like, Manchas, you're just fueling Mancha. So
Yeah.
I love that aspect of Zip. He's so much fun to play. And
we haven't even mentioned the pianos yet.
Yeah, he drops the
He
piano
drops
markers.
pianos.
And the thing about Zip, and once again, you're back to Zip and the Fluff as this super, super annoying guy who talks too much and, just kind of like talks about himself, blows his own horn, like is genuinely obnoxious. And on the table, Zip is genuinely obnoxious.
Yeah, for sure. And I know a lot of people really hate the first mate just because of the threat this guy has. I mean, there's many times where I wait until the end of my last two activations. I take an iron skeeter and I fly first mate up somewhere. Then I activate first mate, do his leap, charge into something, and then just start murdering.
Yeah, if he picks a flank and they don't have the best thing about him is that you can set him anywhere you need to on the board, and then you respond to how they go. So if they bring their big beaters to one side, you send the first mate to the other side. Now they have to come all the way back over to stop the first mate, or just let him terrorize that flank.
Yep.
Because you always want to deploy him kind of like center board, unless they've already deployed, and then you can put him wherever you want. But if you go first and you put him center field, they have to decide which way they're going before you move first mate. And that allows you to have that choice of being like, nope, he's going to go over here. Like, he has leap. I don't care. You're not going to pin him down. And butterfly jump.
Well, and I think that's the thing about Zip's crew, that if you love countering and if you love controlling kind of the way the game's flowing, I mean, Zip counters so much stuff. I mean, I played against Rasputina and my buddy's like, I'm going to put all these ice pillars down. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to fly over them because I don't care. Yeah. And yeah, that kind of nerfed everything she did.
And then Mancha comes in behind and picks up ice pillars and, punches Rasputina
smacks
in the
him
face.
with the ice pillar.
Yeah. But yeah, and that's what Zip does. He has a surprising amount of damage too. Don't underestimate how much damage that gun can do. I've definitely brought Ma crew with Zip in it, and Ma's loaded him up with focus, and then Zip's flying in and just decimating a crew and knocking them out of position and doing good damage to them. You can't underestimate that.
Yeah, and I think once again the thing that's huge about Zip is just the amount of repositioning he can do to his crew, but also the opponent's crew, because you can really catch somebody out of position when they're trying to score whatever they're trying to score.
Yeah, absolutely. And GG1 position is a big deal. So Zip, he went from being pretty good in GG0 to fantastic in GG1.
Yeah. Yeah, there's been almost any of the current strats I could bring Zip. The only one that maybe I don't know. I don't know if I would put him into public enemies as much, depending on what the other crew possibly could be.
I play Zip kind of elite and play with some pretty Mancha's kind of hard to take down. First mate's kind of hard to take down. Zip's hard to take down. Gracie's hard to
Yeah.
take down. So
Yeah, so
like
maybe Public Enemy's not too bad
if
there then.
the scheme pool fits, and I think that's where you look at Zip. Zip is he can do just about anything, but if the scheme pool fits, how much can Zip deny from their scheme pool? That's where he goes in. Like,
Is there any other, like when you see a faction declared, is there a faction where you see them declare, let's just say 10 Thunders, and are you like then, oh, I can't bring Zip then?
I Zip has some pretty hard counters in 10 Thunders. So yeah,
Yeah.
I will kind of shy away from bringing Zip into Thunders because I know that McCabe with Mask Agent or Samurai with Mask Agent, like, it's just going to ruin his day.
Okay.
Samurai is a hard model to deal with in Bayou. It's got
Yeah,
big armor, lots of positive flips.
I kind of lucked out with that because I played the Samurai once with Zip, and first mate just got lucky because my opponent forgot to, um, kind of forgot about the fly with me because I didn't activate the Skeeter yet.
Yeah,
So he moved him up too far, and the first mate just ate the Samurai.
that'll happen. But like with McCabe, like a fast Samurai with the glowy sword or the
Oh yeah.
phantasmal mirror is just so hard to deal with.
All right. Well, we got one more keyword. So we have the Swamp Fiend. So I think this is the keyword that most people just don't want to see, just from my experience from people out of the Bayou faction. Like, it's almost like they're like, please don't bring Mama Z. Please don't bring Mama
Yeah,
Z.
I mean, obeys are one of the thing I think that makes Malifaux sort of unique. And
It does.
there's not a lot of obey styles. Not a lot of I get to control your models in other war games.
Yeah.
So it's hard. It's hard to deal with, especially for newer players. Like you have to always worry if I move this model here, has Z gone? If she hasn't gone, is that model going to punch me back? Like I
Yeah.
don't want that. You know, if my opponent's playing Levy and I'm playing Z, there are models in his crew that do damage to themselves. Like you don't want that. If an
No.
You don't want to bring one of the riders because Z is just going to eat all their tokens. You know, like
Well, and that's something I think newer players need to think about is, yeah, it's cool to obey your own stuff and it's cool to obey them to damage themselves, but really you can start getting nasty when you start removing schemes and messing with the strat that they're trying to accomplish, and that's where obeys become really powerful.
oh yeah, absolutely. And like, you know, so you got your big beater and you put 2 focus on him on turn 1 and you're feeling pretty good and you've moved him up and then she walks in with a 13 because she's on a stat 7. So she's going to tie you no matter what, just about. And suddenly you're taking 2 actions and she's used both of your focus. And not only has your model gone in and destroyed your crew, but you've wasted that whole model's activation. Like
Yeah.
that turn 1 getting 2 focus, you just ruined it. Like, or big like stuff like Ashes and Dust or Mature Nephilim, anything with like high move, like you've just sent them twice across the table. And what are they gonna do? Like I played against I was playing Ray in one of the tournaments and he played Neverborn Zoraida. And like the Lucky Emissary, he did the trigger and the next thing I know it's 24 inches back across the board. Like
Oh my god.
yeah, what do you do with that? And it's run over your own crew, so you have to do move duels for your own crew, and it's like,
You
man,
just at that point you just see, you can imagine the Lucky Emissary just being cursed out of its mind and just doing donuts around your own
right.
deployment, knocking your crew all over the place.
If you are a new player, though, I will say, don't tell your opponent to not play Z. Have your
Yeah,
opponent play
that is
Z.
annoying.
Learn just because like playing against masters like Z, you learn to play against them. If you learn to play against those control masters, you become better at the
Well,
game.
I was gonna say, and it's not exclusive to her. I mean, there are, even in Bayou, there are other masters that, and there's even other models like Old Cranky and other models that have obey in the models. So I think it's just something you have to learn to play around obey, and you just have to be flexible because your opponent's going to do it, and you got to figure out, okay, well, how do I react now, or how can I punish my opponent for almost extending to do that?
Yeah.
So you just got to. That's
Well,
how
with
you got to
Z, she
play.
doesn't have to extend to do that because
Well,
she can
and
hit you
that's
from
fair.
24 inches away and has a trigger that'll make you do two actions. Like that's so huge in how
So,
a model plays. Like
so let me ask you then, John, what is in Bayou? What is she? So she's doing all that control stuff. What is the rest of her crew doing while she's obeying the other crew?
kind of like Mawtucket, you sort of have to pick you pick what Zoraida crews are doing. They're
Okay.
either going to go in and go all killy. You know, you're bringing First Mate, you're bringing Bad Juju, you're bringing Mancha, you're bringing Rami, you're bringing a Groot Slaying, and you're just going hard in on them. Like that's or great, Gracie, whatever. And you're just
Yeah.
like all your crew is two Bocors and elite models punching people in the
Okay.
face.
So you can go that way.
Or you go super schemy. You bring the Silurids. You bring a Groot Slaying, to move instead of attack at this point. You bring
Hmm.
a more scheme-oriented, maneuverable crew, and she's kind of at the center of the web, moving them around and getting people into position and knocking your opponent out of position. So, like, you have to determine which crew you want. Like, you can't. I think you run into trouble when you build a crew that tries to be both aggressive and scheme control, board control,
Yeah.
because you don't have enough options. And the keyword itself, outside of Bocors, the Groot Sling is really good. First Mate is pretty good, but the rest of the crew is not great. Like Gators are
Yeah.
okay. Silurids are they're very fast, but they go down pretty easy. Spawn Mother very rarely sees play. Gups very rarely see play. Like
Hmm.
Walled Geist, I don't think I've seen one on the table yet. They just
I
don't
mean,
have
you
those.
said you put it on the table once, right?
Yeah, a Wall Geist. Yeah, I put one Wall Geist I think on the table maybe at the beginning, like in beta. But
Yeah.
other than that, like you're not gonna see them very often because they're just slow and you know, they don't do as much. Maybe GG1 has room for them. I'd have to reevaluate, but Zoraida, you have to pick what you want to do kind of ahead of the game, which
Yeah.
requires a lot of meta knowledge. So it's not like you're just going to grab Zoraida and be like, I am the king of Malifaux now because I have Zoraida.
Well, it also might be with Zoraida where you don't just look at how your models interact, but then maybe when you use your obeys, you figure out how your opponent's models can help you reach your goal.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, you're really not only at that point knowing your crew, you have to know your opponent's crew as well.
An important thing to remember with Zoraida, if she obeys you, or any obeys, if she obeys you to drop a ski marker, you drop one of your ski markers, not an opponent's ski marker. So she can
Yeah,
have your opponent's models dropping your schemes for you, which is, it's pretty big,
really good. Yeah, oh, yeah.
especially at 24 inches away.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I need a scheme marker over here.
Yeah.
Boom.
It's the last activation of the turn. Cool. I'm going to obey 3 models to drop 3 ski markers, score breakthrough.
Sweet. We did it.
Yeah, or spread them out. Boom, done. All right.
All right, everybody, let's go home. We did it.
Yeah,
Good
right. Like,
job.
yeah, we win.
Yeah, because I was looking at her actual like keyword, and I, and you can let me know if this is correct. I've heard people say that she's better in Neverborn than she is in Bayou. I mean, would you say that's correct?
I think objectively, yes. She has a lot of really, really good aggressive models to bring in, but I think that she hasn't seen a Bayou champion yet. Nobody's
No,
really just
somebody
like,
who just devotes to her.
yeah. I think if you saw that, I think if you saw somebody just say, I'm going to play Bayou Zoraida for the next 5 tournaments, people would start bitching about her and being like, well,
I would say
crap.
challenge accepted, but she does not seem like my favorite my favorite master out of the group. Uh,
She's hard. She's so hard to play.
You need reps with her for sure. So this kind of leads me into, because I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe that's all the crews, right?
Yep. We didn't talk
So
about. No, we talked about everybody. Yeah.
so this kind of leads me into my next kind of part of it with favorite crews. So the one that you can really see yourself, you like running it, you're pretty successful with it, and obviously I'm just getting into this, but it's really hard for me not to like Big Hat. I just
They're so
once I
good.
played, yeah, once I played it, I was like, man, this crew is fun. There's triggers all over the place. I feel like I have a lot of playability and a lot of control, even when my model's not activating. Whereas when I play other crews, I like it. But there's some times where you're just like, man, please don't do this. Please don't do this. And then they do, and there's nothing you can do sometimes.
Summer is one of those where you get these turns that just you can see the look on your opponent's face, and they're just like, because so they went, they attacked a model, they killed it. I get a shot. Like for instance, I've done this in a game where his big beater was on like half wounds or something like that. He goes
Yeah.
in, he kills a good old boy. He needs to kill the good old boy because the good old boy has the lodestone. He kills the good
Okay.
old boy. Triggers Pig Eating Grin. Lenny pops up.
Throws a pig.
Lenny throws a pig, gets the trigger, charges in, kills their model in the middle of that model's activation.
Oh, wow.
And there's just that look of like,
And they're just looking at you.
Yeah, and of course, Lenny was the closest one, so now Lenny is back into position to score Lodestone because he got the charge in to be in base contact again. And I just killed your big beater model. And it's like, in the middle of the activation, like, it's not even like it's my turn. It's your turn.
It's like, they're like, I was supposed to be doing the thing, not you.
Yeah, and like when you Bayou 2 card damage flip and it's a red Joker and it's just like you get to a straight flip, you Bayou 2 card, it's a red
Still
Joker,
there, John?
and they're just like I hate you. I hate you because it's the second red Joker I've seen this turn. Like
Maybe.
it's it doesn't make you friends normally,
No.
but when a big hat game goes wrong.
Yeah, I was gonna say it seems like a house of cards where it can go bad quickly.
Yeah, if they kill the trifecta is Lenny, Georgian Olaf, and Sommer. If you kill one of those three models, admittedly, they're not easy. Like with Lenny Zora, Georgian Olaf is a 7 defense. With hard to kill, Lenny is pretty tough. He's got soul stones. Sommer's got squeal built in, soul stones. Like they're not easy to kill, but if you do get to them and you do, focus them down, then suddenly it's a much harder game. And I think that's where, when you compare the two, Sandeep and Sommer, I think that's where Sandeep kind of gets a little bonus because
A little more durable.
he has better ways to protect himself. Like, throwing up fire pillars or ice pillars or, just lots of different ways.
Sandeep can also trace line of sight through elements, right?
Not elementals, academics.
Academics, that was it.
Yeah.
I knew it was one of them.
But
go ahead, John.
But Big Hat is such a fun crew to play. Once you start seeing, you have your brilliant mind moments where you start seeing these places where like this happens here and then this happens here and then I can do this here, and you've got this turn planned out, and your opponent goes, you look at the board and you're like, my opponent has to do this to score, so I'm going to put this Bayou Gremlin. I'm just going to run this Bayou Gremlin right here in his way. Now he's got to kill his Bayou Gremlin in order to score. And it's like, crap. My opponent's going to do exactly what I want them to do. And
he's going to kill it. I'm going to draw a card, and then I get to do things.
Yeah, and that 13 in my hand is suddenly going to become dead model.
It sounds like you like Big Hat a lot, but since I already picked that one, what would be the next crew that you're like, okay, I really love this crew?
My favorite crew to play is Brewmaster.
Okay.
Once again, he's control-y. He can switch gears real quick and just like suddenly punch people in the face. And I mean, the best part about Brewmaster is that once you're done with the game and you finish beating them, you can, especially like in the Durham area, we play at Atomic Empire and they have a bar. So you just buy you beat your opponent with poison on the board, then you go over and you buy him a beer to, apologize. So.
I'm sorry. Here you go.
Yeah, like it's a win-win. It's even if you lose, it's a win. But I love Brewmaster. He's a lot of fun to play. Just a cool model in general. Lots of little fun tricks and just being able to like just drop poison out everywhere and then suddenly like, oh yeah, by the way, I'm gonna hit your guy for 20, 22, 23 damage. Have fun with that.
It seemed pretty good. Not bad, as they say.
Yeah.
Yeah, stone all that.
Or like the one game we played where it was McMorning versus Brewmaster.
That sounds miserable.
No, it was hilarious. It's so hilarious. First of all, Brewmaster has a little advantage in that fight.
That matchup.
But at one point, I realized when McMorning struck Brewmaster, and I got the trigger, and McMorning had 22, 23 poison on him.
Oh wow!
And I was like, I could knock this guy clear across the board. Like. He's gonna go to the other player's game because they were playing a game next to us. Like
he's gonna go buy me a drink at the bar.
Yeah, I just smack him across the board. He's done. Like he's never getting back to me. So Brewmaster's fun. I love Brewmaster a lot.
Okay, and just a couple other little things here. So looking at new players in the Bayou faction, we talked about some that we wouldn't recommend, some that we would. I mean, what specific master or crew are you like, okay, this would be good for a new player?
If you can get your hands on the second edition box, because it has all the enforcers you need to play, the kin box, the Ophelia box is just it's a full, just about full 50 soul crew right there in the box.
Oh, is it? Wow.
Yeah, because it's all of our enforcers except for Maris. So it's everything you need to pretty much play right there. Ma's another great one. Zip is good. I would say those three are probably like the
good starting point
right there. You want to go for is Ma, Zip, and Kin, because like Woolix, you need like 4 other boxes to play him. Sommer, you need like 4 or 5 other boxes to play him. Like Wong doesn't have any real like firepower in his main box except for Alphonse, so you really kind of like...
Yeah, I saw those lightning bugs in his main box, and I was like, those just look stupid.
I love them, though. They're good models. They're good models.
Well, okay, I think we're talking about 2 different things. I think the models look stupid.
That's fair.
I think you're saying the abilities look good.
Yeah. But, yeah, like everybody else, you need, 3 or 4 extra boxes to supplement to get to a good team. But with... Zip, Ma, and Ophelia, you really only need like 1, maybe 2 more purchases, and you're there. And there's a lot of like build over. So, for instance, if you get any of those 3 and you buy Gracie, you can play Gracie in all 3.
Yeah, there's like another that's easy 8 stones that could go in any of those crews.
If you buy Zip, you can put the first mate in. You can put the first mate in Ma. You can put the first mate in Kin, no problem.
I mean, first mate can go anywhere. Let's just be honest.
Rami will show up in a Ma crew a lot because he ignores armor.
Yeah, I saw he's pretty slick.
Yeah, real good, undercosted, fantastic. Like, so all of those 3, I think they play really well on like being able to. If you just went in and just bought those 3 boxes, and buy those 3 boxes, buy Gracie, buy the Emissary box. You've got your crew.
That gives you a lot of play around.
Yep.
Okay, so the last question I want to ask about Bayou, and this is one that I'll ask with every one of these we do. Look, obviously, when you go to a tournament, it's all about kind of the player. But, I mean, if I take a Bayou faction to a tournament, I mean, are they pretty competitive where if I play similar skill or higher players, I mean, am I going to be able to compete well with the Bayou, or are there just some matchups where it's like, man, if you see this, you're kind of just done?
They're pretty competitive. I would say, like, in the tiering out, Malifaux is
It's tough. Like
It's
I cannot for I mean obviously I'm new into it, John, but for the life of me, I can see that there's some powerful things, but there's powerful things in every faction. So it's tough to tier it because the factions have so many different masters in them.
yeah. I would say the lack of top level players just gravitating to Bayou, and part of it is probably the bias. They are the silly, they are the zany, crazy faction. I think people
Yeah.
sometimes will fall away from it, but yeah, if one of the top level players in the game, if Cody picked up Bayou and started playing Bayou, a weird place would be full of I hate Bayou within weeks. Like that's just how it is. Like, if Jamie Varney in the UK said, I'm gonna, just focus in and play Bayou. He did play Bayou for a little bit and he did pretty well in like one tournament or so with them. But like if he just jumped in and said, I'm gonna play Bayou this year, by the end of the year, the Nerf Bayou would be, the biggest thing on. Like, they're good, they're competitive, they got everything they need.
Yeah. I will say that there's there's a lot to unpack with Bayou, and they're not always the most direct with their path to victory, but I kind of like that. And I think that kind of really makes it where, as a player, you can really create a lot of unique scenarios that can really surprise opponents of similar skill or even higher skill if they're not ready for it and they're not seeing it.
Yeah,
Uh,
I can't wait till
but I
somebody
will.
picks up Wong and really turns him up. And maybe I'm not that player. I haven't really given him his fair shake as I should have, probably. Like, maybe I
Yeah.
need to just do that and just jump on him and
I'm not gonna
go.
lie, not gonna be me, John, because I think he looks stupid. Like, not the way he plays. I'm talking about. I'm kind of one of those guys where unless it's really good, if the model looks stupid, I'm not gonna play it.
That's
But
fair.
if it's broken and it's gonna really help me win the game, sure I can look past it. But if it's just kind of meh, I can't get past it then.
That's fair. Swinehurst are fantastic models.
Now I do have a ton of swine curse. I think I actually have four of them, and I think I can only bring three.
Two.
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 So I
Yeah.
got two more than I'll ever need
Yeah. Swinehurst
for
are
you to
great
be able to
models.
use.
They're awesome looking models. And the Pigapult's a fantastic model. Um, I love the stuffed piglets. I don't like the sculpt for the Alphonse model. I think they missed the boat there. He could have been much more interesting than just a shirtless giant gremlin.
Yeah.
But whatever. I'll still play him because he's a solid model. But
Yeah.
yeah, like I think that moment where somebody really like tunes into Wong and drops him in 3 rounds in a tournament, and you've got three opponents going, I don't know what just happened to me.
Chloe, what?
Yeah, like, this guy sucks. Everybody says he sucks, but I just lost.
I tell you what, there is something to be said for a dark horse. I play a lot of tabletop games, and I tell you, if you get really tuned in with a faction or a crew, and people aren't as familiar with it, you can really catch people.
Yeah. Oh, it's that way with Ophelia right now. You just don't see her because Ma with her focus bomb before
Before the
the
nerf.
the nerf was so big that like people didn't really bother with Ophelia, and you put her on the table and they're like, oh, it's a gremlin, I'm gonna kill her, and then she survives, and then she turns around and just deletes models, and you're going, what, just how?
Oh,
But
she's my next master I'm putting on the table. She looks like fun.
and you're like, there's a squishy faction, I don't get it. So yeah, I love that surprise kind of round you can pull on people. Eventually they'll figure it out, but gremlins are flexible. Like, you can always throw in a new trick, and suddenly they're having to look at this completely different vector. Like, here comes a pork chop and two Bayou smugglers. Like, where the heck did that come
I
from?
I will notice though, or I will say that I noticed with Bayou that sometimes you really gotta not be too proud to kind of just tuck tail and run. because I've had it plenty of times where Bayou just they're squishy, right? Most models in a Bayou faction are squishy, and there's sometimes when you see the damage coming, you just gotta reposition and get the hell out of there because it can get bad quick.
Well, you're playing Sommer, so I'll give you the my personal style of play. And like if you talk to Oliver, he plays them a little bit differently. But my personal style of play is acceptable losses. Every
Yeah,
model,
sacrifice. Well, you're playing with 2 point gob or gremlins at that
yeah.
point, right?
And sometimes the correct play is to red Joker 4 Bayou Gremlins in. It doesn't seem like it is, but it could be. Like that's
That's
4 more
yeah.
activations, and that's 4 more chances for a Gremlin Crier you've already got on the board to obey and interact. Like it's 4 more. You can't devalue 4 more activations, even if they're 4 insignificant activations.
Yeah, and I like the gremlins for that just because I mean it's adding to your Bayou Bash, it's adding to card draw if they kill it, which is giving you a shot, and you can use the crier to go scheme with them. So it is one of those things where it's just like, yeah, they're 2 points, but I mean, if you kill it, you're only helping me out.
And if you can, you always want to try to have the card to summon whatever model you need for the turn and to buy a Gremlin. Because
Yeah, you told
basically,
me that, and that was valuable.
yeah, you trade a card for a card. Like you're trading your summon card for a card in the bank later on in the turn.
Yep.
And they're gonna have to kill your Bayou Gremlins because their Bayou Gremlins are gonna shoot them off the board if they don't kill them.
So last thing I do want to talk about, John, because I mean, I haven't gone to a lot of real people tournaments yet because
Right.
obviously of the situation, but
Yeah.
I definitely plan on doing it once that's a thing again. But one thing we didn't talk about was just general Bayou upgrades. So you mentioned them kind of in passing, but what are a couple of the Bayou upgrades that you're like, okay, these are ones I take from time to time?
12 Cups shows up a whole lot. Yeah, 12 Cups shows up a whole lot. It's so good. It's, you can't, mark territory is insanely good. If you're not playing Zip, people are going to drop markers so you can blow them up, get focus. That's
Yep.
another cute little trick with Brewmaster too, is he can step in and get a surprise. Oh, look, I just ate your 2 markers that you dropped, and now I'm focused too. Enjoy that.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Inferiority Complex, playing Big Hat. It's always on Georgie and Olaf.
So what does that give Georgie and Olaf that you like?
It gives them, anytime they, like, you want to walk as little as possible in a game, but you're always going to have to walk at least once. So that walk basically becomes 2 actions. You walk, get a focus. So
Mm,
you always want focus on Georgie and Olaf because they're your main blast for hitting your pig eating grin. So it gets that. Plus, if there's any terrifying, manipulative, that sort of thing, it gives them that ability to have ruthless, so they don't care about that.
yeah, which is good because I mean, there's not a lot of stuff in Bayou that can get around terror, so that's definitely good that that's one of it.
Yeah, yeah. So that's those are the 2 that are the main ones. Ghillie Suit is a defensive one, and it shows up like specifically like I like it on Lenny because it gives him the ability to see more people for his aura.
Yeah,
And specifically because a smart opponent is going to try to block line of sight, but if he's size 4, they're going to have a hard time doing that.
yeah,
Um, you know, a and plus he can't be charged, so it just adds on to his you can't kill me. Same thing for Wong. A lot of people put Ghillie Suit on Wong because he needs to be able to see people to do his the glow bonus to get stuff back, and he's size 1, so you need to be able to see over all your size 1 guys.
yeah.
So it's a cute little trick. There's I haven't seen many people take it. It's probably not worth taking. But there's a cute little interaction with the Spit Hog.
Okay,
If you give a Spit Hog Ghillie Suit, it gets the bonus action sidearm. So it can shoot
okay.
someone at a stat 7,
That
8.
seems pretty good.
No, stat 6. So Bayou Bash for me, stat 8. So it shoots at a stat 8. It's not a big shot, but Spit Hog has the ability discard a card force another model and interact, or a friendly model. When it does damage, you can discard a card, and another friendly model in line of sight takes an interact. So you
Nice.
could potentially have this pig turret, like, shooting one shot a turn to drop an interact where someone doesn't expect it. I don't know that it's good. I've never actually done it, but it's a cute trick you could possibly do. So
Nice.
I would say Inferiority Complex comes on pretty often. 12 Cups is probably in almost every list. And Ghillie Suit is a very specific, I have a very specific thing that needs to be done with it.
Yeah, I took your advice on one of the ghillie suits and I put it on I put it on Iron Skeeter so I could, chauffeur Mancho around and that was pretty good.
Yep. And then it can't be just charged either, which is just, it's just bonus.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. And Bayou's a great faction. I would definitely tell people that it's not only fun, but there are just a lot of really creative things. I know there's a lot of jank in Malifaux, but I feel like that the Bayou faction, depending on the master, there's a lot of jank in Bayou because there's a lot of triggers I've noticed in Bayou that can really lead to some creative scenarios.
Yeah, yeah. And there's so many times that, like, you have opponents just go, wait, it can fucking do that? Like, son of a what? No,
It's like,
but
come again?
yeah, like when you kill somebody in the middle of their activation.
Yeah.
No, that's not right. Like that's not right.
It's like, do you want me
Or
to throw my fate deck at you? Because this is how I throw my fate deck at you.
or like playing against Titania, and they got their Gorar, which will become a hooded rider when you kill the hooded rider. And it's
Yeah.
like they keep it in the back behind all their underbrush markers, and the lucky emissary pushes 12 inches, takes out 2 underbrush markers, and then charges the Gorar and kills it on turn 1.
Yeah.
And they're like, but no.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Not sorry.
No, not sorry at all. Because you don't want 2 hooded riders.
I no, that sounds awful. I think that's going to cover it. We got a lot covered with Bayou. I imagine that most of these faction episodes are going to take a while, which is good because I know people are craving Malifaux content. I've had a lot of people, like, when I put out the one episode, say, "Yeah, man, this is great. I love it." And then I have other people message me for like, "Hey, man, I want some more." And I'm like, "Okay, all right. I'm getting my feet wet. Let me get comfortable first."
Yeah, no, it's hard. Like, play the games. Vassal, once you get used to it, it's not so bad. It doesn't hold a candle to a real game, but
No.
hopefully, I know in Australia they just had a tournament, so go Australia. Getting back to normal. Who knows in the United States when we're gonna, see an end to this mess? But yeah, play Vassal. Like that's get on there, play Vassal. The cool thing about playing Vassal is you can play people in the UK. You can play people in across the United States. You can see play styles you've never seen before. So while we're stuck in the house, just take the time and do it.
All right, well, John, any shout outs or anything else you want to kind of share before we get out of here?
If you guys want to read my articles, go ahead. That's awesome. I appreciate feedback. I enjoy doing them, so I'll keep doing them even if I don't get feedback. But if you guys, just absolutely let me know. And especially if you're into Bayou and you want to know more about Bayou, and you just want it written down, because like podcasts are cool, but some people just need to see the written, and be able to go back and reference. So if you have anything specifically that you want me to write about Bayou, let me know, and I will definitely have it on the Bayou Breakdown. I'm going to try to write an article each week. Like, that's my goal. Even if it's just a fluff battle report piece, because I got nothing better to do. Let me know.
It's cool because I do like the idea of it, but it does and I think this is kind of the challenge Bayou has sometimes because, and you talked about this in the article, just some masters don't mesh with each other and it just takes away with what that keyword's trying to do.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Ma Zip, Ma Summer, Ma Ophelia, Zoraida, and anybody, like, those make sense, but like Ulix is never going to be a second master.
No, poor Ulix.
Like, There's some masters that are just never going to do it, but there's some times where it is the right choice. Like when you look at Public Enemies and you're like, it is the right choice. All right, man. Well, I appreciate you having me on the show.
Until then, thanks again, John, for coming out, and we're going to always make sure that we flip them cards and flip them tables, and we'll see y'all next time.